Muy buenos días. Vamos a dar inicio a la sesión diplomática.
Good morning. We're going to begin the diplomatic, parliamentarian, and political session of the Peace Integration Summit, Guatemala 2018. Please be welcomed. And we are going to start by inviting the personalities who are going to honor us. First of all, Mr. Álvaro Arzú Escobar, President of the Congress of Guatemala. We would also like to invite Ms. Gabriela Lara, General Director of the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace. And we would like to invite Ambassador James Lambert, the Secretary of Hemispheric Issues in the Organization of American States. The diplomatic, parliamentarian, and political session is a session that allows for us to create spaces of discussion and dialogue to develop and strengthen the different proposals, projects, and agreements geared towards the improvement, peace, and happiness of the integral human being based on sustainable development. Of course, always in harmony with Mother Earth. This segment calls many people today, many presidents, former presidents, ambassadors, diplomats, parliamentarian members, members of different organizations. After we began on Monday with the science session, the science for the preservation of the life of Mother Earth and the human being, the corporate social responsibility session, and yesterday with the wonderful rectors of universities all over the world, we are developing this summit with great success, but obviously this session is very fundamental. And for those who come for the first time, this is not a place to argue, but to make proposals and to take away what is contributed here, because this is about a peace integration summit to end conflict and to think about humanity. And so for that, Dr. William Soto Santiago had the initiative of this summit. So we're going to see a message of the progress of the session, the diplomatic, parliamentarian, and political session, and how it has advanced.
On the way for the construction of a stable peace and the confirmation of governments, challenges are each time bigger. Societies go continuously through profound changes, and that makes necessary the integration to understand the common problems of regions, to seek for solutions and to generate actions for the well-being of the human beings and of the Mother Earth. Since 2015, CUMIPAZ has convened to representatives from the diplomatic, parliamentarian sector in order to speak, discuss, in order to incorporating public policies, laws, for the promotion of peace, happiness, and primordial rights of the human beings. The approval of the project traces to remember, as a result of this work, in the political and parliamentary sphere, in the Republic of Paraguay approved of the education, the law which is educate to remember, which is aims at making people remember what happened by studying the Holocaust, and other genocides as a way to generate reflection on the value of life and the human dignity. The House of Representatives of the State of Mexico and the United States unanimously approved the educational proposal of GEAP in order to implement a culture of peace from the university education for the benefit of youth in all fields in which it interacts. On April 26, 2018, the plenary session of the Senate of General Health Law to amend the Cultural and Health Law, which is an imperative in this country to promote an altruistic donation saves blood donation. The Honorable Congress of the State of Veracruz approved the implementation of the Professorship for the Peace, which will benefit 737,000 students from the higher level for the formation of integral leaders, promoters of peace. Among other advances, proposals have been submitted to resolution and laws before environmental ministries, chancelleries, and congresses of Paraguay, Uruguay, Colombia, Guatemala, El Salvador, Dominican Republic, Panama, Costa Rica, Bolivia, Brazil, Ecuador, Peru, among other countries. In the multilateral level, proposed by the GEAP in regional forums such as the Organization of American States, Latino, and Mercosur have been officially presented the proposals. A joint work that the diplomatic, political, and parliamentary session commits to continue doing for the common welfare of human family and of the Mother Earth.
We are convinced and we are committed to continue obtaining all of this progress in this diplomatic, parliamentary, and political session which seeks to help global peace. We would like to greet all of the personalities that will be with us today. The former President of Ecuador, Mr. Anuncio Gutierrez. We would also like to greet all the diplomatic sector from Guatemala, Ms. Liliana Roch, the Ambassador of Argentina, the Ambassador of Panama, Ms. Vivian Panking, the Ambassador to Honduras, the Ambassador to Spain, Jose Portavales, from the National Congress of Honduras as well, the Ambassador to Russia as well, and we also have an important representation, the Director General of the National Defense, and the former President of Guatemala, Rafael Estrada, as well as other invitees. Please be welcomed. We would like to call immediately Senator Álvaro Arzú. He was the deputy-elect in 2016. And in addition to also being elected this year in 2018 for the 2018-2019 session in the Congress of Guatemala, he is honoring us with his presence to give the opening words to this important event.
Good morning to everyone. Ambassador James Lambert, Hemispheric Secretary of the OAS, Mrs. Gabriela Lara, General Director of the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace, rulers that are accompanying us today, special guests, ladies and gentlemen. I thank the invitation to participate in this summit about peace. I have titled my speech as the true and the false peace. And by doing this, I am aware that the title is already telling us something that because we are already threatened by war, but also we are threatened by the peace. In a not far past, the confrontation was ideological. It was the ideas, the ones dividing communities, peoples, and the states. And those ideas turned into commitments, not only of thought, but also of a way of life. The defeat of fascism and the disappearance of the Soviet bloc left a clear lesson. We should learn to live in democracy and under the laws of the free market. At the first moment, enthusiasm made us thought. Many people think that the end of the history had come, but today, on the 21st century, we know that the history was not close to our advanced. The history continues, and the last struggles, the last confrontations have changed in appearance. They have been transformed, but they are still here. The ideologies disappeared at some point. That's what it was said. But even this situation seems like an advantage. It is not really. Ideologies define clear postures and action for social action of political activism that is predictable. But in present time, when the ideologies have been blurred, nothing is safe and everything is uncertain. The left party that have turned to the religion of the political correction has started in a progress awareness which have surrendered to the triumph of the market and has displaced the political fight to the territories of the human rights, the defense of nature, the systematic attack to traditions and traditions transmitted through the families, and the fight against corruption. The fight for power stopped being a fight to try to find the best system that expresses human nature in the best way and make a reality its aspirations. It's turned into a battle for making prevail the best strategy to administer the public resources and the private resources. This fight has deteriorated the state and the scale of values and has destroyed the traditional morals and has invaded territories that were preserved before for families to tradition and to the customs of the peoples. Today, we live in an environment of uncertainty. Political correction of the progressive awareness has made people to wonder, to ask, to question everything, that they get to think that it's necessary to debate even the last detail of our daily life, of our familiar intimacy. Some people have to be aware, be aware of the words that traditionally they have used, because there's always somebody watching to hear, to watch, to denounce. Contemporary society is much more docile than the societies of the past. You could almost say that we're beginning to see that the world, that all world projected, is a reality. Societies that seeking happiness, pursuing happiness, end up subduing their citizens to terrible sufferings. What is true, what concerns us, is that in a society in which there's surveillance and in which the judicial power is manipulated to impose a unique way of thinking, is a society that lives under the regime of fear and the environment of terror. And where there's fear, there's no liberty and there's no peace. This is the false peace that threatens us. A falsified way of peace, which is as violent as to achieve what the guerrilla members from the armed confrontations didn't reach in the past. A peace, apparent peace that it is lived as a way of condemn, because it hinders us from having access to the true peace. In Guatemala, this false peace is paradoxical and ironical because the Guatemalans, we face the end of the ideological confrontation as a commitment that committed both parts seriously. And I mean the peace agreements that were signed by my father on December 1996. In the agreements, it is established clearly two unquestionable budgets for the current world. In one hand, the fact that we live in a globalized world to which economies have to the economies and state policies need to be adapted, and on the other hand, the idea on which the only correct way to seeking power is through democracy, through the way of free elections with free competence of election proposals. With much effort and patience, we were given compliance to the commitments established in the peace agreements. Agreements that touch the most sensitive subjects of national life, those aspects of social life that are by themselves conditions, real conditions for development and for the construction of a just society with equality and Pacific. Over 20 years after that's the signature of the peace agreement, it is easy to perceive that there are sectors that seem to have forgotten that many of the current claims are already stated in that nation project. The state of Guatemala, the last insurgents, as well as different sectors of the Guatemalan society with the accompaniment and the committed testimony of the international community, we enable ourselves to discuss the topics in relation to ethnic differences, to the rights of indigenous peoples, to the situation of women in society and in the work environment, to the care of Mother Nature, to the modernization, economical modernization, to the necessity of incorporating ourselves to the globalized world, to the modernization of the states, and many other subjects that are still current. This great agreement that is still being discussed and is perceived as an impossible utopia in other countries, we reached it over 2 decades ago. It was the propitious moment. It was a moment that I have called to be a historic one for a special reason. It was the occasion in which the Guatemalans reached the course of history of the world. During the last decade of the millennium, the whole world was leaving behind the ideologies, and we, the Guatemalans, we were doing it too, after a confrontation of over 40 years. However, 5 elections later, all of them free ones, and in which the results were respected, there are groups that are resentful of not having reached their expectations. That left party that have to be reinvented in post-ideological times could never reach the power by the democratic way of the free elections. They were incapable of constructing political leaderships that would have given them real options to conduct the matters of the state. Democracy is a form of political regime, and as such, it is subdued to the system's conditions, which includes the formation of political parties, of leaderships that can give expression to the wishes of the majorities, and to being subdued to public surveillance and free elections. 2 decades and 5 elections have been enough time so that these groups can realize that through the democratic means, by the legitimate means of elections, they will not have access to power. And this, because the citizens don't believe in them, nor in their proposals, which do not represent neither their wishes nor the values of the Guatemalans. It is for that in the last 2 years, just in the threshold of a new election, they are trying by many means, even taking advantage of the intervention of international organizations and national organizations financed from foreign countries to create the propitious conditions for the breakage of the constitutional order. This violent means go from forcing judicial declarations in a way so that they can take the history away from the young people, all the way to the politicization of the judicial system to make a way for elections without competence. This struggle, this fight that has divided Guatemalan society, is a paradigmatic example of what I call false peace. But then, what is then the true peace? What does it consist of? And if we can get to know this, is it possible between us? First of all, we have to live clear that the true peace is not something free. It is reached fighting against these forms of violence that are mimicked of like peace and that get our daily life out of balance, that alterate the intimacy of families, that corrupt awareness, consciousness, and deteriorate the tradition. The true peace is a form of coexistence in which the desire of imposition is substituted by the respect, in which resentment takes a step aside and lets cooperation go on. But in order to respect our differences, we first have to acknowledge them. And that respect to the other, to his way of life, it's called respect to his humanity. True peace depends on the primacy of social forces. And what are those forces of society? Are those ones in which what is good and endless is defined: family, community, and the faith. The true peace has the form of the fight against the political use of human rights. True peace depends on the search of an activism on a long term that as a principal idea has the reject of the purely strategic condition of the world. I know, in a world in which, ironically, the excess of communication media falsifies the reality, it requires courage to practice that politics of independence. Independence of thought, but above all, independence of ethical independence from covert, from materialistic violence which dominates the political fights. They want to make us believe today that the search for peace is something that is pre-road, is established by the gender policies, liberty, which is really understood as liberty with no limits. There's a global policy which helps us is intended to promote, to convince us that the only way to promote peace is by eradicating the values of tradition, and it is by introducing the division of family and separating us from the core vital cores of society. Without family, without tradition, with our own customs and without values, we don't have society. We don't have liberty, therefore we don't have peace. The person that is abandoned to his own interest, separated from those who give them identity, and separated from his memory and custom, is condemned to violence, condemned to try to impose himself to the other instead of coming across with him and with the other. Seeking true peace needs then a huge and profound moral responsibility, as well as a political action far from the party's interest and from the exclusion. The fundamental weapon against the political correction, the imposition of values and beliefs different to ours, different to the ones of our history, is the true vocation. Is rescuing and defending what is ours. We have the responsibility of rescuing the peace from the hands of those who understand politics as a strategy, as an instrument to reach sectarian interests, to make war to their political enemies. It is our responsibility and nobody else's to rearrange the seek for peace in terms of the cultivation of virtues, the family values and the traditions that precedes us, the memory without which we would stop existing. The search for the peace through the virtued way is the only way to overcome the crisis of values and the crisis of politics and the institutions. Authentic politics cannot be imagined if it's not as the search for the common good. The search for the good is not possible in the absence of justice. And justice is unthinkable without peace. Thank you very much.
We would like to thank Mr. Álvaro Arzú Escobar, President of the Guatemalan Congress, for his excellent words, opening words to this summit, to this session, which is so important. We would also like to greet Rabbi Jose Carmon, Rabbi Eliyahu Bire Yahu, and Netanya Cohen. Ambassador of Israel in Guatemala. We would also like to ask Ms. Gabriela Lara, the Director General of the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace, to come up. She is a social communicator with more than 16 years in experience as a journalist in Bolivia. She has been able to carry out a work in NGOs throughout different countries in Latin America and Europe. She has also led projects of social impact and intervention geared towards the youth and Mother Earth. And we are proud to have her now as the Director General of the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace, alongside our Executive President, William Soto Santiago.
Good morning. Warm greeting to the President of the Congress of Guatemala, Mr. Álvaro Arzú Escobar, Dr. Lambert, Hemispheric Affairs President, distinguished authorities that are with us. Be welcome one more time, and on this occasion to the political, parliamentary, and diplomatic session. From the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace, we believe that peace is the reason of being of the human being. And the happiness is an inalienable right, and to reach it, we need two fundamental aspects in our leaders that are, each one of you, love for the other and political will. All the social actors recognize the wish to build peace, to finish with poorness, intolerance, and they provide access to having a quality access to public health, economical development, and a healthy environment. And it's the political people who has a big role in this to reach these goals. The construction of peace is a continuous process, dynamic, creative, that needs agreements and wills. The presence of each one of you on this political, diplomatic, and parliamentary session make us happiness, hope, and very multiple ways to keep working for the integral happiness of the human being and of Mother Earth. Continuation, I want to leave some words of introduction from our President, William Soto Santiago, that by health issues he won't be here, but he will have the words from the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace.
Muy buenos días. Cordial saludo a la mesa de honor, autoridades y público presente en esta sesión diplomática, parlamentaria y política. En la actualidad es muy común encontrarnos todos los días en las redes sociales, la televisión y los medios de comunicación en general, titulares que hablan de altos niveles de endeudamiento y corrupción de los gobiernos, situación de emergencia económica, crisis social, humanitaria y política en los diferentes países. Esta situación ha provocado el incremento en la falta de credibilidad y desconfianza en los partidos políticos por parte de la ciudadanía, generando un consenso generalizado y propagado por diferentes medios de que la clase política se ha corrompido y que las problemáticas que atraviesan los países se deben a las acciones equivocadas de quienes tienen la tarea de gobernar. Si bien es cierto que existen evidencias de que en muchos casos la clase política se ha distanciado de la sociedad, no podemos ni debemos desconocer que han existido y existen gobernantes y grandes líderes políticos que han trabajado y trabajan día a día con convicción por el desarrollo y bienestar de sus pueblos, acortar el distanciamiento con la sociedad, establecer un encuentro sincero que retroalimente una transformación profunda, pero fundamentada en la esencia misma del origen de la política. Es parte de una agenda urgente y necesaria para los líderes y partidos políticos. Es fundamental recordar siempre que la esencia de la política es el ser humano. La política es una actividad humana honorable que cuando se realiza conscientemente, en forma responsable, con solidaridad y vocación de servicio, busca el bien común y está orientada a la habilidad de gobernar con la participación directa y continua de los ciudadanos para tomar decisiones que permitan el desarrollo de las naciones y el bienestar de los habitantes que las conforman. Ese fue el propósito por el cual se creó y ese objetivo no ha cambiado. Lo que debemos es fortalecer los valores en todos y cada uno de los que participan en ella, es decir, en sus líderes y en las personas que integran la sociedad. Se cuestiona la credibilidad de los partidos políticos, pero en general las entidades y las instituciones, sin importar su orientación, los grupos de poder y los sistemas están integrados por personas. Entonces, donde debemos trabajar es en los corazones de los seres humanos que conforman los partidos políticos, en los corazones de las personas que conforman los poderes en una nación y en los corazones de los ciudadanos que forman parte de la sociedad, que tienen el poder de elegir a los líderes. La política involucra la toma de decisiones constantes y para que estas decisiones sean correctas deben ser tomadas desde el corazón, fundamentados en principios y valores, pero ante todo fundamentadas en el amor al semejante, ese semejante que puede ser una persona, pero también todo ser vivo que habita en nuestra madre tierra. Es difícil tomar una decisión que es aceptada por todos, pero una decisión correcta es aquella que se realiza cuando se aprueban acciones, leyes, decretos, declaraciones, resoluciones o políticas públicas que son positivas y lo benefician a usted como líder, a su familia, a la sociedad en conjunto y a la madre tierra. Porque las decisiones correctas promueven la igualdad, defienden la dignidad humana y los derechos universales, promueven el crecimiento social y económico, pero en el marco de un desarrollo sostenible. Usted sabrá que la decisión es correcta porque sentirá paz en su corazón y contribuirá con el bienestar, la superación, la paz y felicidad de la familia humana y del planeta Tierra. Honre su vocación como político, honre su credibilidad como un líder integral que puede transformar positivamente su entorno. Honremos nuestro accionar como ciudadanos y, ante todo, honremos nuestra esencia como seres humanos. Llevar adelante un país no es una tarea fácil. Se necesita del compromiso de todos. La política es un arte y una ciencia integradora que se fundamenta en el amor y el servicio por el ser humano y debe adaptarse a las transformaciones sociales, económicas y tecnológicas que atraviesa el mundo sin perder su esencia. La toma de decisiones correctas que conduzcan al bienestar, la superación, la paz y felicidad de la familia humana y el respeto por la madre tierra. Muchas gracias.